steps towards pay equality before. This is one more. It is badly needed. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Are there any other members who wish to speak or offer an amendment to S. 728? Senator Cassidy.
I offer Cassidy number 1 as an amendment in the nature of a substitute. And this would replace the text of the Paycheck Fairness Act with provisions from the Wage Equity Act, which is sponsored by, legislation sponsored by Representative Elise Stefanik, which means it could be signed into law. It creates a safe harbor for businesses that conduct an internal wage audit and rectify disparities, while also strengthening the Equal Pay Act. And what it does do, it's also important what it doesn't do. It doesn't impose millions of dollars in compliance costs on small businesses, including those owned by women, under the guise of closing the pay gap. I would point out that the Paycheck Fairness Act has the potential to benefit trial attorneys more than working women. And it also helps businesses do the right thing. If a company self-audits and fixes the disparities that they find, they should be able to do so, encouraged to do so, without the fear of being sued. And it also makes sure that wage differences between different genders are due to real, legitimate business-related reasons, not an impossible and exceedingly vague standard, nearly impossible to demonstrate in a court of law. I would ask that my colleagues support the legislation.
Let me just mention that we have a lot of amendments today, and I'm going to urge people to keep their remarks to 2 minutes. I oppose Ranking Member Cassidy's amendment. His amendment would replace the Paycheck Fairness Act with an alternative that fails to address wage discrimination. This amendment would give employers a get-out-of-jail-free card for wage discrimination and unfairly limits the ability of workers to freely discuss their pay. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment when the vote takes place. Further discussion or other amendments? Other amendments?
I have amendment number 2.
Cassidy, amendment number 2.
Again, in the nature of a substitute, replaces the Paycheck Fairness Act with that of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which is already law. Now I'm actually going to offer and withdraw this. I just want to make the point. It is already illegal. It is already illegal to discriminate on the basis of gender. So the law that we're considering today is redundant, repetitive, not needed. And the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was considered a great victory by those on the other side of the dais when it passed. And yet now it is inadequate. With that said, I offer and withdraw it, and I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Are there any other amendments?
Cassidy number 3. The purpose of this one is to strike the section related to the enhanced enforcement of equal pay, which frankly helps trial attorneys more than it does the average worker. Employers are already prohibited by current law from paying people differently for doing the same or substantially similar work. And so the focus of this amendment, once more, is to empower women and help employers do the right thing, but without putting the emphasis there as opposed to the trial bar doing better. I would ask all to support.
I oppose Senator Cassidy's amendment. This amendment is a poison pill, clearly designed to undermine the entire bill. This amendment would allow unscrupulous employers to continue exploiting loopholes in law to justify wage discrimination. It would also remove protections for workers to discuss their pay and advocate for equal pay for equal work in their workplace, free from retaliation. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment when that vote takes place. Further discussion? Other amendments?
Cassidy number 4.
Senator Cassidy.
This would remove the Department of Labor award for pay equity by striking Section 7 of the Paycheck Fairness Act, which establishes the National Award for Pay Equity in the workplace. And there's a lot of awards out there already, The federal government doesn't need to duplicate that which is already there. The companies can use the awards they receive to advertise for prospective employees and to maintain the employees they have. For example, Diversity Inc.'s top 50 companies for diversity list considers a variety of workplace practices and human capital metrics that employers and employees would be interested in. And of course, DOL can do this. They can do everything. No, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So I would ask the DOL actually focus on its responsibilities it has under current law, including enforcing wage and hour laws, addressing growing child labor violations, figuring out how to address substantial pandemic unemployment assistance fraud, which totaled over $60 billion, and reduce persistent risk in the unemployment insurance program. So sure, they can do it. Why don't we ask them to do what they are supposed to do first? I ask my colleagues to support.
I oppose Senator Cassidy's amendment. This amendment would strike the creation of a national award for employers who work to achieve equal pay for equal work. This award is meant to recognize businesses that do the right thing, and that is to eliminate wage disparities, close the gender pay gap, and provide equal pay for equal work. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment when that vote takes place. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Romney.
Mr. Chairman, I've been in the Senate now for about 5 years, and I've noted that individual members are free to give impassionate speeches and introduce bills that have no chance of passing. They know they have no chance of passing. It's all for politics and all for posturing. It accomplishes nothing for the country, doesn't move us forward, doesn't deal with the challenges we have. If an individual member wants to do that, I say, well, let them waste their time as they wish. They can spend their entire career in the Senate, have nothing passed whatsoever, get nothing done, except a lot of speeches and a lot of passion and a lot of followers. To have that apply to a committee, however, is really quite discouraging. To have our committee, to have our chair and ranking member not be able to work together and come up with provisions that might help women in the workplace, might improve worker conditions, to do that on a bipartisan basis. It's happened time and time again. But in this case, the committee is being used in the same way that some senators use their time, which is to score points, to make a messaging statement, to be impassionate, perhaps to get some contributions, but it accomplishes nothing and wastes all of our time. This is really unfortunate, Mr. Chairman, and does not speak to the seriousness of the times we live in, a time when we should be working to prepare ourselves for the challenges that we face.
Senator Romney, at another time, we may have that discussion, but not right now because we have a lot of work in front of us, and I want